G'day, I'm Dan McCarthy. I'm a local tourism operator. I run a charter boat out of Cairns here, spend a lot of time on the water. In July this year, the revised environmental impact study for the Cairns Shipping Development Project has been released. We took the opportunity last week to have the Minister for Northern Development, the Honourable Senator Matt Canavan, up in a helicopter so he could see for himself the area involved. There's three experts in the helicopter, Pepe Ivanella, Norm Whitney and Phil Castle. The draft revised impact study is referred to as the EIS. I had an opportunity to sit down with the three experts that briefed the Minister on this issue. Yeah, Phil, you're a very experienced civil engineer in our region. Can you just tell us about the opportunities in the Barren Delta in relation to the Cairns Shipping Development Project?
Well, I sure can. We took a flight over there the other day over the Barren Delta area, which is quite a vast area. We could identify quite easily 5 or 6 sites there that could potentially take up to 4.5–5 million cubic metres worth of spoil. The significant site, of course, is the sand plants there. They've already got a hold, so it's very simple to dispose of them. The prawn farm is another great site that could take up to 1 million cubic metres of spoil. It's all bunded and quite secure. So between all those sites on the Barren Delta, we could certainly take the 4.5 to 5 million cubic metres of spoil.
So Phil, obviously there's some environmental concerns with placing dredge spoil in that area. Can you just fill us in on that, so to speak?
The very beauty of putting the spoil in the Barren Delta is that predominantly it's going into a hole which is below the water level, the water line, so the spoil is contained. The other advantage we have is most of those sites are already an ex-mining site, so they've got the environmental controls, the bunding, that type of thing in place. Very, very minor engineering earthworks to ensure that the spoil is fully contained and the environment is fully protected. And that would cover right up to a Q100 flood event. The proposal at this stage is to dredge the spoil from the channel itself, ship it up and re-dump it in the known spoil ground just off Richter's Creek at the moment, and from there they'll set up about a 7-kilometre pipeline with a few booster stations, and they'll actually pump that spoil material back into the land. So really the difference between dropping it there and pumping it back into the land and simply dropping the maintenance spoil, absolutely no difference at all. No impact on the environment that would not naturally occur during any maintenance dredging. So very, very safe, very straightforward operation.
Well, Pepe, you've been a dive tourism operator in Cairns here for over 30 years. Can you just tell us about the shipping channel and the condition of it?
I've never known the boat channel to be as badly silted as it is currently. Yeah, we have constantly having boats being bogged in the boat. If you're a new yacht or boat arriving at night, not familiar with the area, you will come aground on our boat channel. And that's the designated boat channel that you would normally feel comfortable coming down because it's a safe area because it's been dredged. But there's 2 locations in our shipping channel that the current local knowledge, the local boats, even the local boats, the local yachts, I talk to people all the time, we've been bogged in those spots, we forgot they were there, and we have to wait for a high tide so we can get off. And that's a designated boat channel to allow boats to come in and out of the harbour safely. Even large ships have difficulty getting in and out. Currently the boat channel, if it was these medium cruise ships that come down, the other boats have got to stand aside to allow the cruise ships to come up and down. Otherwise there's no room and boats will get bogged and go into the mud.
Yeah, absolutely, Pepe. As a charter operator myself, going in and out of there regularly, I know what you're talking about there, where the channel's approximately 90 metres wide, but it's only really that centre, about a third, that's actually dredged to the designated 8.3 metres, well to the side of that, well within the leads between the markers. You can come a cropper there and run aground very, very easily. So
you definitely need local knowledge to travel safely in the designated boat channel.
Yeah, correct. So Pepe, can you just explain, for the benefit of people watching this that aren't out of the reef regularly, the distance between the maintenance dredging grounds, where their yearly maintenance dredging spoil goes, and the proximity of the closest reef?
Probably from the spoil ground, the closest tourist location is probably Green Island, and that's probably half an hour through a deep channel, where again the prevailing winds and currents push it south. So it tends to, if that area where the spoil ground is, tends to drift sideways and in towards the airport, so that it'll sit and drift and settle there rather than go out to the reef. So that's the normal conditions. That's what normally would happen in 99.9% of the conditions.
Yeah, and I see with the EIS the short-term dumping ground for the capital dredging works that are about to commence, hopefully very soon, is around about 24 kilometres from the nearest reef, I see. Well, they temporarily put it there before they pump it ashore, so
yeah.
It's well away from the reef and posing no threat to the Great Barrier Reef, which is great.
Absolutely
great
no
news.
threat to the Great Barrier Reef, and actually the benefits are huge for Cairns and the community.
I'm about to talk to Norm Whitney here. Now, Norm, what's your involvement been in East Trinity over the years?
Well, we'll go right back to 1969-70 when, as a landowner in the area, I was asked to clear a section of that site, and I've known the area ever since. But in the 1990s, my wife and I were contracted by the CSIRO to do all the groundwork and establish the problems with the acid sulphate or potential acid sulphate on the site. This study and work we did for about 4 years, taking samples every 2 weeks, and we got to understand the area very, very well.
Norm, as you can see on the footage there, we're about to sort of go across towards East Trinity there. Obviously there's been a long debate over putting dredge sediment in the area at East Trinity. As you can see, it's right adjacent to the channel, right across from the harbour. The current wasteland that's there is very visible from the top of cruise ships when they come to town. So can you just explain the benefits of using that area to take the dredge spoil?
A lot of people got a misapprehension of the East Trinity area. Ever since the last century, or the beginning of last century, it was farmland. But in recent times, when the state government owned it, it's been degraded by salt water intrusion, and a lot of the forests that we see previously have died. It's an area that is already bunded. There's a very substantial wall around the property, which is some 900 hectares in all. There's a great potential for East Trinity to be developed for the future of Cairns region and Cairns City. It is so close to the shipping channel that it could be filled very, very easy, and CSIRO suggested that those areas of water, ponded water we see, could be filled with the dredge spoil. That would solve the acid sulphate problem, which became apparent 30 years ago. And it could become the main asset for Cairns and the region.
Okay, Norm, that area we're talking about there at East Trinity, who actually owns that land?
It is now owned by the citizens of Queensland. The state government actually bought that freehold property from the National Westminster Banking Group in the year 2000 at a cost of many tens of millions of dollars, and since then it is costing the citizens of Queensland and the taxpayers some $500,000 to maintain. But unfortunately the maintenance has been degrading the land.
Norm, you mentioned the size of the land. Just how much of that area is needed to take the original proposal of 4.5 million
Daniel,
cubic metres?
the whole property, the whole freehold property is somewhere around 900 hectares. But a lot of that is not required for dredge spoil, and a lot of it is quite high land. Probably about 300 hectares would more than adequately cope for the whole 4.4 million cubic metres of dredge spoil as proposed originally in the original dredging program.
So Norm, over the last 7 odd years that this proposal, or this issue has been really highlighted, and then been looking at expanding our channel, you've been very involved in keeping abreast of it. And in your opinion, do you think it's the most economical place to put the dredge spoil over at East Trinity?
Then, historically, it has shown that the whole city of Cairns has been developed using spoil dredge from Trinity Inlet. Certainly in the last 40 years, the whole area of Portsmouth has been developed using the spoil dredge from Trinity Inlet. East Trinity area is exactly the same as the Portsmouth area before the filling went in. And at that stage, all that happened was the dredge pulled up along shore, and a pipeline was connected directly to the dredge up to the area that was going to be filled. And that ran even right up Ormula Street to the maximum area above Redden Street. And that is exactly what can happen to East Trinity. It is by far, far more economical to do that than build 7.5 kilometres of pipeline at the Barren River.
So Norm, has there ever been dredge spoil placed at East Trinity previously?
In the late 80s, 1980s and early in the 1990s, there was a proposal by a developer to develop what they called a satellite city over there. At that stage, the developer had made an arrangement with the Cairns Harbour Board or the Port Authority, whoever that was at that stage, to actually buy the dredge spoil if it was suitable. And an area of about 2 hectares was actually filled up with spoil pumped from the harbour to test the suitability, and it proved to be quite good.
We're calling on the federal government to amend the Reef 2050 plan to allow for future capital works as they're required for the Cairns Shipping Project. The current project was grandfathered when the Reef 2050 plan came into effect. So what that means in practice is that once this project is completed, and keep in mind it has been downsized from the original 4.4 million cubic metres to just over 1 million cubic metres. Also keep in mind the Townsville Channel, which is already significantly deeper, over 1.4 metres deeper than the Cairns Channel, has just had approval for 11 million cubic metres for their next expansion. So quite obviously, in a few years' time, beyond this project, the Cairns Channel is going to need further expansion. Not so we can become a bulk minerals port, but simply so we can keep up with cruise shipping, access for our fuel ships and our other trading ships well into the future. So we're calling on the federal government to revise the Reef 2050 plan so our future, our Cairns economy is secure.